Hi there, and welcome to the Realm of Horror's Movie Awards for 2011. It's the new year, so I thought I'd better do another video. You might remember I did something similar to this last year, except that this time I've ditched having different categories and just decided to go with a list of films that I thought stood out for me for one reason or another. So, in no particular order, my first recommendation is The Dead by the Ford Brothers. Now, this was about a zombie apocalypse sweeping Africa and one soldier's journey across the desert as he tries to make it to safety. Beautifully filmed in and around Ghana in Africa, it has a real Omega Man and I Am Legend sort of feel to it. I did find it to be a little slow moving, however. It's certainly not what I'd call an action film. In fact, the zombies are almost like a subplot, being just one of the many obstacles that he has to overcome on his journey. But it passed 90 minutes quite well, so if you get the DVD, be sure to watch the making of documentary that's on it, as it's certainly an eye-opener as to all the gruelling conditions and problems that the crew had to face when they were shooting in Africa. Anyway, moving from zombies to aliens now, my next recommendation this year is Battle Los Angeles. Really more of a sci-fi action film than a horror. This one's about aliens invading LA as we follow a squad of Marines that have to go in and rescue a group of civilians trapped inside a portion of the city that's been overrun. It's what I would call a popcorn film. It might not win any Oscars, but it was huge fun to watch and had some great action scenes. It's certainly way better than that god-awful War of the Worlds remake with Tom Cruise from a few years back. Another alien invasion film that I enjoyed this year was Attack the Block. This was kind of like Shaun of the Dead but with aliens instead of zombies. Basically, a group of young hoodlums end up going head to head with a bunch of wolf-like aliens that invade their tower block. It was funny, action-packed and gory, though I must admit the first time I saw this at the cinema I really wasn't that impressed first time round, but then I saw it again on DVD and really enjoyed it much better. It does seem to play better on home video for some strange reason, so be sure to check it out if you haven't done already. Another fun and gory film that I liked this year was Hatchet 2. Now, this one actually came out in the US back in 2010, but we didn't get it until this year, which is why I'm featuring it now. It's a very fun and gory follow-up to the original Hatchet, in which a group of rednecks go into the swamp looking for the legendary Victor Crowley from the previous film, only to get carved up in loving detail. I know people may disagree with my choice here, but I thought this film was hilarious and it doesn't skimp on the blood either, and like its predecessor, features a lot of appearances from various horror B-movie characters, including Kane Hodder and Tony Todd, who both make return appearances. Now, another sequel in my list that's bound to divide opinions, Scream 4. Okay, it's basically more the same as the last three films, but it's got Neve Campbell in it, and I quite like the way that it took the piss out of the Saw films and out of David Arquette and Courtney Cox's real-life relationship. At the end of the day, it's a popcorn film. It kept me entertained for the duration, and that's all I really ask of a film. And speaking of entertaining films, one which you might have missed this year and should have had a much wider release is Troll Hunter. Group of students making a documentary film about this mysterious hunter who it turns out is actually hunting trolls in the Scandinavian wilderness. As you can gather from the title, it's a really tongue-in-cheek sort of film. It's been made Blair Witch documentary style, but don't let that put you off. It's a really enjoyable comedy and I really enjoyed it. Now, this one only had a limited run at the cinemas, but it's out on DVD mid-January, so be sure to check it out then. Continuing with the comedy theme, I would also heartily recommend Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. A sort of cross between Laurel and Hardy and Bad Taste, in which a couple of idiotic rednecks are fixing up this old mountain cabin they've got when they rescue this young girl from drowning in the nearby lake. Unfortunately, her friends think she's been kidnapped by them, and all sorts of problems ensue when they decide to try and rescue her, as their old cabin turns out to be a bit of a death trap and the bodies begin to pile up. Again, very tongue-in-cheek with some nice gore scenes. If you like Bad Taste or Brain Dead, you should love it. I'd also like to recommend Hobo with a Shotgun. Arguably Rutger Hauer's most bizarre film yet, in which he plays a homeless man that decides he's had enough of the crime and the corrupt police force in his town, so he grabs a shotgun and starts cleaning the streets up his way. The title pretty much tells you all you need to know. It goes a bit bizarre near the end, but again, it's a fun film and makes an excellent companion piece to Machete, which I recommended last year. It also has one of the best uses of the song Burn Baby Burn I've seen in the film, so be sure to check it out. On a more serious note, there's the film The Resident. Hilary Swank moves into a swish new apartment only to find that her landlord is not the perfect gentleman she originally thought he was. Well, isn't that always the case? This one was produced by the legendary Hammer Films and co-stars Christopher Lee. I liked it. It started off as a straightforward thriller, but then took a more sinister twist halfway through. It only had a limited run at the cinema, but it's out on DVD now if you want to see it. Another good film, Stateland. A very, very underrated vampire movie about a world that's been decimated by vampires. The film focuses on a group of stragglers trying to make it to the north where they believe there's a safe haven away from them. If you've seen the Viggo Mortensen film The Road, it's kind of like that, as it's got a similar post-apocalyptic vibe to it, but it's not as depressing. I was kind of surprised to see Kelly McGillis in this, as I don't think I've seen her in anything for quite some time. I also like Daniel Harris, who has a role in this, who seems to be in quite a few horrors lately. This one should have really gotten a much wider release if you ask me, but it's now out on DVD if you want to go see it. Now on to a couple of more controversial recommendations from this year. The first one being The Thing, which was actually a prequel to John Carpenter's film from the 1980s. This one's set at the Norwegian camp at the South Pole that first unearths a spacecraft. It follows the subsequent events that led up to the creature being thawed out and chased into the American camp, which is where John Carpenter's film took place. Action-packed and gory, it ties in nicely with the Carpenter movie, but it has a nice twist in the end that leaves things sort of open, but I won't spoil that for you as to what happens. The only downside is that there's a lot of scenes that appear to have been lifted directly from the Carpenter movie, which gave me the impression that this might have started life as a remake, but I'm sure fans of the original will like this, hence my inclusion on the list. Now my next semi-controversial choice is the Straw Dogs remake. Now this one transplants the story from rural England, which was the setting of the original, to a small town in the deep south of America. Now in this, a young couple who've always let people walk all over them end up having to take a strong stance against a group of local rednecks who are trying to lynch somebody that they've got holed up in their house. Whilst one might question the necessity of this remake, as it's no Sam Peckinpah film to be sure, and James Marsden is no Dustin Hoffman, it stays pretty faithful to the original story. James Woods puts in an excellent performance as a rabble-rousing former football coach, and it was still an entertaining tale about how far you can push a person before they fight back. Now, I haven't done a film of the year this year, as there hasn't really been that many original films to choose on. However, one film that I arguably liked the best out of everything this year was, believe it or not, Quarantine to the Terminal. An unusual choice, I admit, given that this was released direct to DVD, but this film really did impress me. It picks up shortly after the original, in which a group of passengers on a late-night flight are forced to make an emergency landing, and are then locked inside a disused airport building after one of them becomes infected with a zombie virus from part 1. There's a real air of tension throughout, as when the film starts you just know that someone's going to get infected, but you don't know who until it happens. Then when it finally does, the film kicks up a gear and becomes quite a fast-paced action thriller. If you've seen the first film, you know that was a remake of the Spanish film Wreck. Well, this sequel is a completely new story and not connected to any of the Wreck movies. I'm pleased to say that it ditched the first-person perspective of the previous film, and I was really pleasantly surprised at just how good this turned out, and I couldn't believe that this didn't get a theatrical release here. Anyway, that's about it for this year. A couple of other titles I'd like to mention briefly, just for their sheer absurdity. Rubber, an ordinary tale about a killer tyre on the rampage on the desert highway, and Kill Keith, which is an even more bizarre tale about a killer targeting washed-up celebrities who decides to go after TV personality Keith Chegwin of all people. Now, I've not actually seen Kill Keith, as it had a very limited theatrical run, but the whole concept was just so offbeat that I had to mention it here. It'll be out on DVD in March, so you can judge it for yourselves then. Anyway, that's it for this year. Thanks for viewing, and be sure to check out my website for other reviews and recommendations. You can also follow us on Facebook, links are in the bar below. Now, as you probably know, I've been having a bit of a break from YouTube lately. I do intend to do a few more vids in the new year, but I'm probably going to change direction a little bit. I've taken most of my old DVD reviews offline and probably won't be doing any more of those. Well, if I do, they won't be in the same format. I might do some more vids about my collection, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, that's it for now. Be sure to rate, comment and subscribe, and hope you all have a happy new year.